Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationship Advice and it's by user Throwaway Not a Killer. My 30 female husband, 33 male, accused me of murder out of the blue. How do I salvage this? My 30 female husband, Luke, 33 male, had a sister, Laura, 29 female. We were all close and saw each other 2 to 3 times a month, along with their parents. Almost 6 months ago, Laura fell down the stairs at their family home and died. It was a freak accident. There's a window on the half landing and she hit her head on the sill. I was the last person to see her. I was there for less than 10 minutes and she was in her pajamas making coffee. I didn't even stay for a drink and I struggle with how such a brief and meaningless interaction could have been her last. She deserved so much more. My husband and I have only been married for a year, but we've been together for 4 and have known each other for 20 plus. When Laura's parents found her, they called my husband straight away and we rushed over. We faced the whole thing as a family. In the days after, Luke started quizzing me exactly what we talked about, what she was wearing, where we were standing, etc. It progressed to saying I was providing conflicting information on tiny details that he was deliberately misunderstanding. He was accusing me of withholding information because I couldn't tell him things like what pajamas she was wearing. This escalated quickly but lasted for less than a week as I lost my cool and made it clear that I was done answering questions. He didn't bring it up again and I wrote it off as a grief quirk. His behavior was generally that of a normal grieving person. Then, last Friday, he outright accused me of murdering her in front of his parents, out of the blue. We were all stunned. There was an inquest which recently concluded, and there was never any doubt the verdict would be accidental death. He said it was completely obvious and he couldn't believe that no one else could see it. He claims I went through his phone and found his messages with Laura. I have absolutely no idea what messages he's talking about. I have never looked at his phone. And that I went over to confront her and things got out of hand and I pushed her down the stairs. By the end, he was shouting about going to the police and getting the inquest overturned and how I wasn't going to get away with it. Let me be clear. Laura and I had a great relationship. We all did. I have no idea where this has come from other than these messages I haven't seen, and even then, I don't think there's anything I could ever see on someone's phone that would drive me to murder. It's just ridiculous. He's been with his parents since this happened and will not talk to me at all. I've had some contact with his mom, but she's not being very communicative. The last I heard, she didn't know what messages he was referring to either. I am still completely stunned and I have no idea how to proceed. I made a commitment to be there for him always, and I understand that grief can manifest in strange ways, but part of me feels like my love for him died the second he called me a murderer, and I don't know how we could possibly work through this. I also really don't want to be thought of in this way, and I have no idea if he has said anything to people we know. I obviously haven't. A brain tumor or psychotic break has crossed my mind and I suggested it to his mother and she just said she'll talk to him. Other than the questions before, he hasn't been acting cold. Obviously, he's been grieving, but he seemed sane and sensible other than this. I feel like I'm going mad. Does anyone have any advice at all? Well, Opie, first of all, I am so sorry for the sudden loss of your sister-in-law. You seem to have been friends and you liked her a lot apparently, so I'm really sorry that you guys are going through this. The whole family, of course. Now, I'm not a mental health professional, but while I was reading your post, I was thinking, well, your husband is definitely going through something really strong in grief if he's accusing you of something so horrible. But then you told us about these messages, and that just raised a lot of questions. And the first one being, what kind of messages is he sending with his sister that he thinks would drive his wife to ending her life if she saw them? Now, if as you say, he is going through some psychotic break, it could be that these messages not even exist. And unfortunately, short of stealing his phone and cracking into it, you wouldn't be able to find out. So if I was you, I would do 2 things. First, see if I could get my husband evaluated to see if he's going through something really deep. And 2 is talk to a lawyer regarding how to protect yourself and protect him if the case needs it. And what do you guys think about OP's situation? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Moral Tag says, F no, you don't salvage this. You get a lawyer and get the F out. Best case scenario, he has just admitted to sending messages with his sister that he thinks would make you angry enough to kill her over them. I have some ideas about what those might be, and they're all bad. How did the parents react when he did this? And OP responds, when he first laid out the accusation at his parents' house, both his mother and I just kept asking him about the messages, and all he would say was that I know exactly what messages he was talking about. She was as stunned as me, and his father just said he didn't understand what he was talking about. He's a man of few words, but there was plenty of head shaking. The whole thing was surreal. No one even knew how to react. I honestly don't know what kind of lawyer I would even speak to about this. From what I'm aware, the coroner's decision can't be appealed, and the police can't launch an investigation into an accidental death. I don't think I'm quite ready for divorce. We haven't spoken about his accusation, and I walked out about 5 minutes after he threw it out, and I have no idea what his frame of mind is. Wonderful Prior 381 says, you need to get a lawyer to protect yourself in case he does go to the police. I would write down everything that you can remember that happened that day and keep it just in case. He may be having a psychotic break. As stated, don't talk to him or his immediate family of your friends without someone present, or preferably by text or email. Save everything. You need to take his accusations seriously and cover your ass. And OP responds, I was interviewed by the coroner's office after her death, as I was the last person to see her. She died about 3 hours after I saw her, and I'd been to the supermarket and was home by that point. It's all verifiable and was a recorded interview. I haven't spoken to anyone but his mother, and that's only been over messages. She's never been a big texter, but she has seemed very cagey over the past few days. I don't know if this means she's seen the messages. I've asked and been ignored. And Robert the World Maker says, psychotic break sounds as possible as anything else, but even for a close sibling, that just doesn't make sense to me, especially if his parents aren't responding this way. I would definitely see about getting those text messages, because they either do not exist, in which case he's nuts, or some real effed up Egyptian royalty Habsburgian dynasty crap is going on between he and his sister, and he thinks you found out about it. That last one seems outlandish, yeah, and it is, but so is just randomly accusing his wife of murdering his sister over some mystery messages he won't even reveal in front of his parents for some reason. So here we are. Get a lawyer first, then update us later, because F, this needs one. And OP responds, I'm absolutely desperate to see these messages because I'm right there with you on the sheer wackiness of what they have to contain. It hadn't occurred to me that they might not exist. I've never known him to lie, but I do think a mental health issue is a real possibility. His relationship with his sister didn't seem odd, and I've never been interested in his phone, but he's never been defensive about it either, so I think you might be right. If I had such incriminating messages, I'd probably worry about them before now. Alright, so the community is not definitive. Some people are saying you can definitely not salvage this. There's something very shady going between your husband and his sister that passed away. And some people are on the he could just be going through a really huge mental health crisis because of the grief. Now, before we move on to the update, OP did stop by the legal advice subreddit to see what she could do. So let's continue with that, and then we move on to the update to see how the story ends. The title reads, Can I force my husband to get a mental health assessment, and do I risk being arrested or prosecuted? We're in England. I'm in a bizarre and complex situation with my husband. I have broken the law and I feel I have no choice but to do so again for my safety. I don't know what type of solicitor I need or what the next step should look like. We're in England and I'll try not to editorialize too much. My husband's sister died suddenly at the start of the year. Her death was an accident and there was no suggestion to the contrary. The inquest was recently concluded and a verdict of accidental death returned. I was the last person to see her, but her time of death, which was almost immediate due to her injury, was confirmed to be hours after I had left the house. All of this was verified at the time. In the immediate aftermath, my husband behaved strangely and kept trying to trip up my story of the last time we saw each other, which was a brief interaction. Last week, months after this was first and last mentioned, he outright accused me of murder in front of his parents. He said I saw his messages with his sister and confronted her, and that he's going to have the coroner decision overturned and have the police investigate. I haven't seen or heard from him since. I posted for advice on Reddit. I'm pretty desperate at this point, and it has spooked me, quite reasonably I think, but also led me to committing a crime and planning another. My husband's iCloud credentials were saved on an old iPad in his office, and I downloaded his backup last night. I have read all of his messages with his sister, and there is absolutely nothing like he describes. I understand this is illegal, and I'm concerned about the possible ramifications. I'm also waiting for a callback from a locksmith to change the locks on the home we own together, which I believe is also against the law. So this leads me to my actual questions. 1. I feel justified in what I've done for my safety, but is there a degree of pragmatism under the law for these issues because of the situation, or am I shooting myself on the foot? 2. I am resigned to the fact my relationship is over, but his parents don't seem to be taking this seriously and they're icing me out. I believe this is a serious mental health issue which may put people, namely me, at risk. Can I do anything about this when all I have is the fact I'm being accused of murder? I feel he needs to be detained and this should be investigated as a full-blown psychotic break. And 3, sorry, this is all a bit mental. In addition, what type of solicitor do I need? My understanding is that a coroner decision can't be appealed. Is that correct? Are his accusations going to go anywhere? Can I protect myself from this or stop him escalating to telling others? We live in our hometown and everyone knows everyone. This could follow me forever and it's either a lie or a delusion. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Okay, so OP got the messages and apparently there is nothing there. Now, I can't give her legal advice, so we're just going to move on to read the top comment and then we're moving on with the update. No Firefighter 9257 says, you are jumping ahead of yourself and playing out situations that have not occurred. If your husband reports you to the police for accessing his data and you are subsequently arrested or taken in for questioning, then obtain the services of a criminal solicitor for advice. With respect of changing locks or ending your marriage, seek a solicitor that deals with family law and divorce. If you feel that you are at risk from your husband, talk to a domestic abuse helpline. If you feel you are at an immediate risk of harm, then call the police. If you think your husband is mentally ill and present a risk to himself or others, call the police. So the top comment was trying to help you with advice and putting things into perspective. So now let's move on with the update to the original post from Relationship Advice to see how the story ends. Firstly, thank you to those who helped me get to my husband's iCloud backups through an old iPad. I wasn't expecting much from Reddit, but I got valuable practical advice before my post was locked, and I appreciate it. There were no crazy or even suspicious messages. I've searched for over 100 terms and scrolled back over years. I saw a side of them both I wasn't expecting, but nothing that explains the claim I murdered Laura over their chats. Nothing to suggest he was cheating and absolutely nothing to suggest an intimate or physical relationship between them. There were no weird gaps where deleted conversations or a switch to another app would fit. Just siblings making plans, sending memes, and gossiping. They said unexpectedly horrible stuff about a few people, but not me. It was a sort of relief, but it raised more questions than it answered. I also sought legal advice, also from Reddit, after posting here. Turns out my options are divorce him or sit down. I contacted my community mental health team, who said they'd reach out, but made it clear it wasn't urgent. I then called his mom and said that if I didn't hear from him by this weekend, I would get a solicitor and ask for a mental health assessment as part of the divorce. In response, he made a ridiculous post to Facebook, which neither of us have used in years, and everything blew up. I'm going to try to keep this succinct. On Friday, he made a long accusation on Facebook with new information. He said he'd been planning to leave me for months with his sister's support, and I found the messages and murdered her. He also posted that the coroner has reopened the case and the police are preparing to arrest me, and he needs to make sure people know before the trial stops him talking about it. It was well written and seemed vaguely plausible. He messaged people links to it, so it got some attention. We live in our hometown and have a large circle of friends because we've been here all our lives. People I haven't spoken to since high school were reaching out to me asking what the F was going on. It was madness. In response, I posted the export of his entire conversation history with Laura, also to Facebook, when I finally got back in. I linked to the chat along with a post explaining my side and noting that I had changed my ex's iCloud and Apple passwords and that if he wanted them back, he should comment on my post and update his own, admitting that he was lying. He eventually did. When I started getting messages about his post, I panicked, and changing his passwords seemed important to preserve everything because he'd know I had access. When I spoke to him the next morning, it's clearly he's not having a mental episode at all, but is claiming one because he's been caught in a big lie. As soon as he was outed, he called me, clearly drunk, begging and promising to explain everything if I deleted my post. I told him to call back the next day and hung up. He did, after many missed calls and texts, and he tried to bargain and guilt-trip me with his mental health until it was clear the wrong people had seen his conversation. It's hard to describe, but it seemed fake. It was too well rehearsed, and then this morning, when it was clear he was getting nowhere, he blocked me. Begging for mercy and reciting facts about mental disorders doesn't align with someone in crisis with a sincere belief that someone murdered their sibling. The question of why he did all this remains unanswered, and he will not be getting his passwords until it is. The legal advice subreddit said this stuff is technically illegal, but it's beneath a court to take action, so I'm going to count on that because I felt like I had no other choice at the time, and now I don't see any other way to get answers from him. I am desperate, and it's all I've got. So here we are. The relationship I have believed was my destiny since I was a teenager has boiled down to petty, convoluted, and vindictive BS played out on social media for reasons still unknown. My hope for a brain tumor is fading, and clearly tomorrow morning is going to be when I lawyer up and stop posting about this. I am mortified. I have no idea whether some people might believe him, and I still don't know why this all happened in the first place. Sorry I don't have a happier update, and thanks once again to everyone who offered advice. Well, OP, I guess at this point the only good thing about knowing what your husband did it for you would be to get some sort of closure, but I think that you just need to focus on trying to get through the divorce and moving on with your life. I mean, you said so yourself, the moment he accused you, that changed the whole dynamic and the feelings that you felt for him. So on that note, I'm going to wish you the best through the divorce process, and hopefully you can be in a better place soon. Take care, OP, and thank you for sharing. Now, let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user ExoticChemist7624. You have to pick me up. For context, my brother is an inconsiderate douche canoe. It was a free day for me. I had a job with random scheduling, so it was either a weekday or a weekend. I'm chilling at home, about to cook up something for dinner or a late lunch, when I get a phone call at 4:30 p.m. My brother called me and expected me to jump up and go pick him up from his job because none of the family were available on a busy weekend for them. When I say he expected, I mean he called me up and said the exact words, "You have to pick me up." This was before he had his own car and license, around 18. His job was on the other side of town, a full 30 to 40 minute drive or more depending on traffic. And it was at 4:30 p.m. just before hectic work traffic at 5 p.m. If I had refused to get him, he would have called either of our parents and whined until I was bitched at to go pick him up. Understanding the box I had been put in, a Grinch-like smile grew across my face as I made up my mind. What did I do? I picked him up and then made 3 stops along the way home. 3 long stops. The first was at a gas station. I had been low on gas and he couldn't complain because I was his only ride. At the second stop, I pulled in at a restaurant to eat inside, Tijuana Flats. The whole time he is complaining that I should take it to go and that we were only 15 minutes from home. The whole time he's whining about me wasting time and that he had to do homework. That homework took like 10 minutes and then he just passed out with his TV and Xbox on. Eventually, he even called Grandma to complain. So much so, she called me to ask if I had offered to buy him any food while we were there. I did, then told him, tough, he wanted the ride, he got it. And finally, at stop 3, a supermarket 4 miles from home, I needed a few groceries. Around 6:15 to 6:20 p.m., when we finally got home, he complained like a bitch to our parents, Grandma and Dad. But when my dad got home from work, he just laughed, gave me a high five, and was like, why didn't I ever think of that? And I was like, hey, maybe next time I'll come along so we can make a few extra stops. My brother had been doing the, you have to give me a ride thing without a please in sight for a while now, and it was starting to get on everyone's nerves. Absolutely right, OP. Your brother sounds incredibly annoying. You have to give me a ride? Sure, but I'm also gonna do other things I want. If you don't like it, you can walk your ass home. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.